Hello, hello, hello. Let's get this rolling here. Okay. Today, all right. My name's Kurt. I'm a dad who draws, and this is Monday. And on Mondays and this is the daily draw. And on Mondays, we always draw something that is natural. So today I want to take a look at drawing cliffs. Cliffs really like the banks of a stream. And I think we can learn a couple different things from this. One thing you're going to learn is what they call is the flag fold. And that's something we'll talk about when we get to on Thursdays. We're going to talk about all the different folds of fabric. But one of them is called a flag fold. So let me show you what that is. That's up here. Let me come up here and give a new layer. This is a flag fold when you would have something like this. Okay? And you would put verticals here. And then you would come there, and then you would circle this around, and then you'd go like that. And you go like that. You see, that's a flag fold. Okay? So let's draw this now. Let's pretend like we were going to draw a hole in the ground. So you might do something like this. When our kids were young, we did this all the time, and they absolutely loved it. So you might have this shape here. Excuse me. And then you do something like this. You see, then you can create a hole in the ground, and that's popular. If you got kids in the neighborhood who have sidewalk chalk, you should stop and draw a hole in the sidewalk with their sidewalk chalk, right? So this is basically the basic concept, okay? Now when it comes to drawing cliffs, what's key is this idea of the key. What's key is overlap, all right? Overlapping of forms is what we're talking about here. So let me, if you were to take I could show you, look at this here. Okay, look at this here. Here's a can of tomatoes, and if and right here, this is at eye level. If I come in close like that, you can almost envision this as a canyon. And then this one would be back here like this, you see? Let me come in real close to the camera there. So that would be up close. And then this one might be back here, you see? They're the same size, but I'm creating depth by scale, all right? So let's take a look at this here. So this first, I included two different illustrations for you to take a look at. This just kind of shows you a layering of objects that have a sense of a canyon going in between them. You see that? And then this one I want to show you. Let me get rid of that one. And then this is another. This is no different than what I just showed you with the cans. And if we wanted to create something like this, let's just make a very simple version of this idea. So let's just I'll tell you what, let's do this. Let's put two squares. Get down and put two squares on your screen like this. Okay. And we're going to call this A and B so I can jump back and forth, all right? So in A, let's just say our first thing of rocks are going to be in the foreground there, right? And then B, we're going to just kind of come up like that maybe, all right? And we could drop a darker value in this because these are up close to us. This is where overlap is going to come into play, all right? All right, go to A now. And so now with A, we're going to draw maybe that shape there. And in B, maybe we're going to draw that shape right there. Now these would be a little bit lighter, so they go lighter in value. And then jump back to A, and maybe now we could kind of like, all right, so that's going to come down there maybe, you see? And this is also going to be lighter in value. And then maybe maybe the next cliff is way over here, and maybe there's another one right there, like that. So these would be lighter in value. And then the last thing is maybe there's a mountain range way out here in the distance, and that's going to be very light in value. So there is a canyon. We just got done really quickly drawing two canyons, really at eye level. And you could see how they, that's basically what they did over here. And then they went in and broke those down, you see? And I've just caught a major mistake I made. This is a major mistake. And I like to point these things out because if you lose concentration, you're doomed to do this. In this example of this illustration I showed you, look, the horizon line is way down here. You see that? And they implemented the great rule of composition called the rule of thirds. That means you always place something that is important at the third. You see, so the whole ground plane is in the bottom third. But these next two planes are kind of above eye level. You see, they're kind of in the sky range. Now some of these rocks go up above eye level, so that makes a very dramatic picture there. Now, if you look at the example that I just drew, I made a fatal mistake of putting my eye level almost dead center. And so that's something we got to remember when we're, especially when we are doing thumbnails. So if you catch yourself drawing something at eye level or at exactly the center, you definitely want to change that. Okay, so I just want to point that out. So here's an example of simply using overlap to create depth of space in a canyon setting. If you want to have some fun, you might want to try and redraw this illustration here on my left, it would be a really good, useful tool. Or take one of your little sketches over here and be inspired. You can come in here and start to like trim away some of these rocks to represent the ones that you're looking at. All right. All right, let's get rid of that. And let's bring in this example now. Let me turn that away. Okay. And I'm really concerned. What I am most interested in is the bottom section. All right. So let's just put a frame here like this. And using that same concept that I just showed you of the stacking, let's stack some of these forms here. So let's just start. I'm going to start down here in the corner. Okay, so we kind of have that, and this is where this next form is coming down. You see that? Then across from that, look at that. You have this piece coming in here. And then we've got this big cliff coming in there, right? And then I'm just kind of putting in shapes here, okay? And then we've got this stream that's coming across. Look at that nice curve there, right? Okay, so let's think about this now. This is where this flag idea comes in. Look at this. Here's that basic flag shape I showed you, right? If this was going to be a flag per se, you might draw something like this. You see? But we're going to use this same idea, but more for a cliff. So the idea would be something like this. You might curve this out. You see? It's that flag idea. So down here in our picture, you can see that the ground is coming around, okay? Using surface lines. And then over here, so this is how we would approach drawing cliffs. Cliffs, or the banks of a stream. And if you wanted to put a couple stones in the middle of the little river here, they're going to be flat at the bottom and round like that. And you might even put a small one behind there. Maybe there's one over here. I'm adding some grasses maybe. And once again, if you wanted to, you could use that same idea that we had earlier of darkening some of these shapes that are closer to our viewer. That's going to cause us to look further in. And of course, when you get toward the back, this is where you want to get a little bit lighter. I'm just dropping in some maybe silhouettes of trees. Okay. All right, let's open up one more picture here. Okay, here's this one here. Let's get rid of that. Make a new layer. All right, so here's another scenario. This is, of course, a much grand view, but it still the same concept applies. So let's kind of put in a framework here for our picture. And let's start, I'm going to start over here. I'm just going to kind of gesture in the shape of that cliff there. And then I'm just gesturing in kind of the direction of that stream, or that more of a river in a sense, right? All right, we got another rock coming here, and then here's this another big old rock face that's kind of in the distance there, right? And then you've got another small one. Just thinking of shape here, okay? Shape and overlap. And then it goes out to the ocean, looks like, right? Once you, in this point of your drawing, in this gestural beginning parts where you are making these decisions, you could tell right away whether this thing's going to work or not without getting into the finer detail. And once you've established this idea, and knowing that your darker objects are going to be toward the bottom, they're closer to us, and your lighter objects are further away because they're in the distance, and that's caused by atmospheric perspective. That means that the objects that are closer to you, there's less atmosphere, as opposed to the objects that are further away, there's a lot of atmosphere. And the atmosphere causes, you're seen through water. So that causes the things further away to be lighter in value. And the objects that are closer to you, there's less water. So once you have your gesture laid down, now it just gets a little bit easier. Now you can come back in here and start to break down these larger shapes. Well, there's a nice thing about these natural landscape drawings is that they're not as pressure packed per se as drawing someone's portrait. You can get away with a lot. So in these early stages, as you're learning how to draw, you might find that place of drawing to be a little bit more relaxing. But it's at this point that you can start to work some of these textures. And values. Where's the darkest values here? All right, there's my river there, and I can see it has a little dark shadow on this side. But that's it. That's what we got for today. Short, but gets a lot of action packed. And you know, if we could spend 15 to 30 minutes daily, that is awesome. So my name's Kurt. I'm Dad Who Draws. This is our Monday edition of the Daily Draw. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something to do with cliffs and have a better idea of understanding this idea of a flag fold. There's your flag right there. Blowing in the wind, right? Okay. We'll see you later. Go out there, make your day great. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.